Hey everyone's Classic DM, and it's been a while, but I put together a really neat series. I think you'll find a lot of fun, especially for my old school AD&D fans or fans of the Pathfinder Second Edition who are interested in going back in time and playing AD&D or D&D Second Edition. I've created this series called DM Sky. I like to call it Detail, and in essence, what we're going to do is we're going to take the steading of the Hill Giant Chief, and we're going to tell you everything you need to know to run this classic module. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. We've set the module up, this classic old, 13-page module from 1978 up in Foundry VTT. And I've done a few little tricks here that make things quite interesting. I'll probably make a separate video that explains how I set these things up. But in essence, the reason why I want to do this in Foundry VTT is it allows me to have line of sight. All the walls have been created, all the light sources are created, all the enemy tokens are created, and I've got all kinds of details here that will make a big difference, including a way for all the player character sheets to be included in the game. We just go over here to we've got folders created that have all the reference books for the Dungeon Master's Guide, the module itself, the Player's Handbook, which you can put that down into the map of the world, and the players can click on it and open up any page they want to open in the book. It's really really useful way to do that. They have a PDF importing tool that I use. You can associate it with actors, which is really, really fantastic, especially for character sheets as well, right? So we use some of our, we're using pre-generated characters from the original module that are provided in the back of the module, and we've got the character sheets, by the book exactly as they're included in the back of the module. So when you're playing with someone over the internet or on a LAN, they don't have to do anything. They just give you the PDF character sheet. You can import it. And of course, I've got all the enemies in here as well, all the way down to custom portraits and everything else. Let's just take a look at that real quick. So Foundry VTT is really, really useful. It's a one-time purchase. The DM buys it. The players only get like a web link. The players end up getting like a, hey, give me an invitation link to this address on the internet or on the LAN, and they can connect to it for nothing. The only thing that's kind of tricky is that you need to have a port open. So you need usually to have like port 30,000 open. But let's not talk about that today. Let's talk about what we're going to actually do in this series. Before I do that, though, the reason why I want to use Foundry, as you can probably tell here pretty quickly, is it allows you to have incredible control over line of sight and lighting and things like that. So as a DM, let's just get the book out of the way here. As a DM, let's go ahead and clear the fog of war here. That's this right down here. This tool here will clear the fog of war, and it'll reload everything. And we're going to go change everything to nighttime. And I'll give you a quick example of why this is going to gradually transition and fade into nighttime. Now, this is the DM's perspective, but if I was a player, I would be able to have a line of sight for very bright light and say it's pitch black, it's a moonless night, it's raining really hard, and the players can move those characters around however they want and even move them as a group if they want to move them as a group like this. It even allows you to control what's legal and what's not legal. So for example, if the fighter is moved up to here and I try to move him beyond this door and there's no way for him to move through the door, it wouldn't let him. So if this door was closed or locked and he was out here, it would let him go through. So that prevents players from going through secret doors and locks. Now, I'm a big tactical person. Yuki makes a sound effect when you try to open it. I'm a big tactical person, so I like to be able to do things like allow line of sight to make a difference. So in this other room, the one of the ways to get into the dungeon itself is there's a couple hill giants that are asleep. And the reason why I want to have that in here is let's just put the module real quick. We just left click this once, and I've got this set this up so we can use the hand tool. We can just drag through the whole module, and we're going to talk about a whole lot of details about this, but not everything. This first area one, has a road and a couple of doors, and the description here, which I'll read to you in a minute, has 2 enemies in it. So for using Foundry VTT, breaking into the steading of the Hill Giant Chief is part of the fun. Once you get inside this place, uh, it can be what do you call it? A 5 alarm bell fire. It can be a complete crazy hack and slash nightmare, or it can be a stealth oriented mission, or there could be a situation where you cause a revolt to happen. All kinds of different people over the years have had different ways of playing this module, different ways of dealing with the number of enemies that you have. So before we go any further on that, that's one reason why I like to use Foundry. It allows me to have this massive map right? This is what it looks like for the DM. The massive map, and it gives me night and day control, lighting control, audio control. I can set sounds, music, all kinds of things like that. I can, place custom tokens with their names where I think they are in the map. So when the players are exploring the map, whether they won't know what's in the room, right? They're only gonna be able to see as if they're really down there, and it gives the players the person controlling these tokens, not me. So if this door was open already and they're moving down the hallway, you can kind of see every 5 foot increment. They can see a certain button. They might be able to see the tip of something here, which might be this, the sub chief's wife sleeping in the bed. So this gives you that chance to have tactical combat where players are doing things. Now, how you handle the combat is way I would do it with this version is let's just get back into DM mode. I'm gonna move him. I'm gonna move him back over here into the outside area. The way you handle it is because it's Foundry VTT does not support the AD&D rule set. So what I do is there's an active module called up in here in the upper right hand corner. Simple world building active module. All it really allows you to do is have a very bare bones basic version of the chat things. You can do, hey, I want to roll a d20 with a +3 to hit, and make that roll happen. The dice will happen. And it prevents the number out. So as long as everyone's honest about their dice rolls, everyone can see the dice rolls that are actually happening in the game electronically without actually having to roll the dice. Say, yeah, I rolled a 3, whether you did or not. It also allows you to have all the other features like you can use a combat tracker, but I don't. I just use the chat interface. It allows you to create a scene and adjust all the properties for the scene. There's tons of tutorials for how to use Foundry VTT. I really like it because we can put all the books that we own in the game world. So if I wanted to drop down a World of Greyhawk book, I can even make it where, hey, this is a glowy little book. Every individual character playing, every player playing can look at the map here. They can take a look at it, they can manipulate it, and when they close it, for example, let's go like this. Let's just allow us to scroll over to the side over here. Say the player is like, wow, this is really great. Let me zoom in here. I want to check out this, Rover of the Barrens. When they reopen it later on, for them it will remember where they were. And you are loading a PDF and closing it a lot. But for example, if the players want to have the player's handbook, and as a DM, I can take these away. They say, "Hey, I want to look up something in the player's handbook." They can look it up with their book, and then you're using Discord to talk with, or they can just chat in the chat interface. So then the players can open up the player's handbook and start flipping through any of the pages. And of course, they can also start going down here, like, oh yeah, I need to look up my spell estimation, my spell table. Let me just go to my spell table here and say, what cool 4th level spell could I probably be looking at? So I could drop that down in the world next to the player characters where they are, where they're thinking about what to do, and tell their friends, like, hey, I really want to cast Ice Storm. Do you think it's a good idea? It would be this much radius, et cetera, et cetera. So all the books are available here. You don't have to pay for anything, right? You just have to use your own PDFs. That's a really, really nice way to do that. There's a PDF converter where you add all the PDF contents as journal entries. Like all these are PDFs: DM's Guide, Monster Manual 2, Cleric, Thief. All those things are created, and then I can create actors and then assign control for those. So this situation, I can just click on these characters in the game world and bring up their character sheet immediately. Same thing for him. And the other players that are playing can do the same kind of thing. So that's a really convenient way to play um, online over the internet. But for this conversation in this video, we're also going to talk about the tactics. What's the detail behind this map? All right, so I'm going to transition over from that high-level overview of what did we do, why are we using Foundry VTT, right? This isn't a Foundry VTT sponsored video. What we're going to do is talk about this map and what happens and what kind of theme it is. And the very first thing you want to talk about is the story. So anyone who's ever run this module before understands that the storyline is very minimalistic and it has a slight kind of wonkiness to it. That's kind of like equip these famous adventurers and give them much equipment, but they don't come back to get their heads cut off, right? And everyone's always kind of like, you can see the videos on YouTube where everyone talks about this section of the map here of the description where it starts saying the adventurers must deliver a sharp trek. This is the sentence here. Everyone gets totally hung up on this. Or else put their heads upon the block for the headsman's axe, excuse me. Everyone knows that, like, if you have an adventure party, they're going to work together. They want to get treasure, they want to get loot, they want to get experience. If the backstory is that these giants have been hassling the area or hassling the neighborhood or causing problems, that's great. That's believable. And if you're going to get a party of the bravest and most powerful adventurers ever assembled, to, and they let them keep all the loot, and you're going to give them all the equipment and get the finest horses available, the threat shouldn't be. And if you don't come back, you're gonna come back and put your head on the chopping block, have your head cut off. That isn't really great. I think almost everyone's objected to that. How do you work with this? There's two ways to deal with this. So the first thing you can do is leave everything about that existing story as it is. Everything can be in the hell furnaces. The kingdoms around can be the same. Just remove this or else return and put their heads upon the block for the headsman's axe. That's kind of unrealistic. Instead, you could do two things. One, you just remove that threat and just they've been hired by a king or a lord or someone of the region, and then you can add a secondary motivation. Like the daughter's been abducted, the brother of the king has been killed, a small village where he grew up has been wiped out by these hill giants. Something that pisses off the good guys, right? The demi-humans. So all the elves and dwarves and gnomes and humans, everyone in the realm that you're dealing with, your characters, it's enough of motivation to say, listen, these guys have done bad stuff, go out and get them. Everyone that signs up to play D&D wants to go do that, right? So that's one option. The other option could be that the player characters are prisoners and they'll be given this opportunity to gain their freedom if they will go here and do this. It could be a situation when they're prisoners for doing something else, but now they'd like to offer you a chance to do X, and in exchange for that, they'll give them their freedom or something along that. You could do that as well. Now, the best way to work with that is to give a motivation for the players to kind of like play characters they don't normally play. And in this original adventure, they include these pre-generated characters. We'll just rotate this a little bit. They include these pre-generated characters. So for this video series, this detail series, I'm going to use the top 4 pre-generated characters, exactly verbatim, exactly as they are. Except I just renamed them. I don't like Gleepwarp, the Eyebiter, Cloyer, Bulls, the Bagsman, or Rorky Swerk. These names just sound goofy. They sound like gnome names, and they're the exact magic items they have, the equipment they have, their stats. Everything is exactly by the book. And in essence, you end up having this party of characters that are kind of ready to go for a stealth operation. This is something that's very, very interesting. So the equipment that they're given, if you have players playing pre-generated characters, like this fighter here, right, who's got a lot of hit points, 104 hit points, he's -5 AC, decent stats. He's got, a spear, battle axe, plate mail, 4 potions of invisibility, potions of extra healing. He's in a great position to do your main tank in essence. And even the cleric, oddly enough, they gave him a potion of diminution, or diminution, how you want to pronounce it properly, and 2 potions of invisibility. And he's very hardy too at a -2 AC. Let me go down here to our little magic user. Let's just zoom in closer so you can see the character portraits better. They look like specks otherwise. Here's a thief. The thief obviously can hide in shadows, is a level 13 thief, has fantastic, but wow, look at this. The dust of disappearance, 12 pinches. That is a lot of invisibility. It is a very, very, very powerful magic item in AD&D, and we'll go through that too later on. And of course, the magic user can cast spells up to 4th and 5th level, and there we're in a robe of blending. And that's something also that's really, really powerful for espionage. It's almost as if when they put together the module, that they wanted this tournament condition of the game. Let's just go back to these guys. This is the original tournament characters, is what they were calling it, right? Let's scroll over a little bit so you can see the original tournament characters. They're completely set up to go sneaking around without gauging in combat. Every single one of those first 4 characters are really, really ready to do that, and even trade potions of invisibility to each other and things like that. So I think a really fun way to capture the infiltration theme of this map is to give those 4 characters to your players. Let the players pick the spells, right? Let the players pick up additional equipment, but just stick with the magic items that they're given, the kids are given, and then have them figure out what to do to break into this place and how they want to handle it. Don't tell them they should use stealth or anything like that. So, um, getting in. This is the second thing that's really, really important. One thing in the module that it describes to you that's really important is that there's a cave nearby there where they can hide, right? And that sounds fine. It's like, hey, listen, they just want you to go in there and do multiple raids. I think when the original adventure was written, the idea was that there is a cave nearby that you can hide. It also talks about how the facility is built. We'll cover that in a few minutes too. In my mind, if you're going to create a cave off, a mile or two away in the mountains, just make sure the cave mouth is really narrow and small. We have to kind of squeeze sideways to get inside. There's also guides that lead you out here because it's known where the steading of the hill giant chief is. So if you go with a cave nearby place, because a lot of the treasure in this dungeon is really heavy, a lot of gold pieces, which is going to be quite heavy. You want to have a place where they can go hide and store all their stuff and have, one of the guides can guard it or whatever. Any horses that are outside need to be taken care of by the guide. So the players will go on foot and try to figure out how to get into this place. And that's a really decent, convenient detail. They're not going to go back to the village of Hamlet and start dorking around for a week. But getting into this place, let's just take a closer look at, this classic picture here, and which has this Viking lodge kind of vibe, and just implant this picture in your brain. This is the main door, double doors here. Here's a watchtower. Here's the main vaulted three-tiered roof system that allows smoke to come out from the center like a Viking lodge. This is an open courtyard that's full of dire wolves that has a gate that you could just climb right over, and there's separate outbuildings with separate roof lines. Let's see what that looks like actually. Let's just check this in the DM mode, and I'm going to turn this back to, let's go back to daytime. We'll put this back on daytime. This will transition back to daytime pretty quickly for us. And then we'll go back to here so you have all the light circles. So as I mentioned a few minutes ago, you've got a number of ways in. You've got this door down here. They're going to be locked. In my situation, I would suggest to have one door propped open so it's venting and it's a torrential storm, a lot of rain for the next week. So there's none that's like the players need to sneak in at night. I think the players entering this place at night is really, really exciting and fun because it's cold. Make it late winter time. That helps tie in the description of the module that talks about being foggy in there and very dark. There's a big party going on in the big room here, but another way in is this open courtyard here. And let's say it's full of, dire wolves, right? So we've got a double door gate. There's no roof on this area. There'll be no roof at all in this area. This whole area here has no roof over it, right? It's pretty long, pretty big. But if you go up here, you have another double door here. So players could climb and jump the gate, right? And then they're having to deal with these dire wolves, which aren't that big of a deal, really. They're not that nasty, but there's a lot of them. And if they get their way into here, then they have choices of going into this outbuilding complex, which is basically empty. As you can see, there's no enemies in it at all. It just is context for where people stay when they're not doing something, because everyone's at this party in the main chief's hall. Excuse me, not king, but chief. You've got an area back here with the guy who takes care of the dire wolves, another entrance this way, and an entrance in this way kind of comes in the back way, right near the chief's main storeroom, his quarters, another area. But as you can see, majority of the population of the people that live here and do things, and the visitors, such as the cloud giants and the stone giants, are all in this area. They're all gathered together with minimal guards and a kitchen full of orcs and ogres and a bunch of females cooking dinner. So you're catching this place kind of mid-party. So in my mind, if you give the player characters an opportunity to figure out what to do, one of the things that used to always be a hot topic for conversation years ago was people try to burn the place down. And I don't think that's possible. This thing is made out of really, really thick um, walls, as you see right here. The outer walls are at least 3 feet in diameter logs, right? Think of it as a log cabin construction. Not like in the second edition map, which shows the logs vertical. That's not how it'd be built. They're all stacked on top of each other. The doors are great iron-bound log affairs of 1 foot thickness. Single doors are approximately 7 feet wide, 6 feet high. All inside of the floors are stone. Just rough stone put on the ground with mud all over it, probably. Ceiling changes from 16 to 32 feet. So this is a really kind of crudely put together, rotted, stinking, humid place. You're not even gonna even though they say a normal fire will only have a 2% chance per round of burning, there's just no way. If you ever try to burn wet logs before, that's almost completely impossible. This place is damp and it's going to be horrible. So I would definitely rule out the burn the place to the ground to get to the dungeon level type idea. One thing you can do instead is allow the players to explore under cover of darkness freely, running around outside and seeing what's going with this gate. Figure out maybe how to climb over the gate, maybe climb over the gate here and make it pretty tall. You can make it a 15-foot tall gate. See the front door, there's lamplight going on. Let's turn this back into dark mode. Let's go back to the darkness. Um, when I did this before in the past, when I was running this kind of like solo in 2018, my very first dabbling at classic DM videos, I made it where the player characters are sneaking in, this door is cracked. So they were coming into the dungeon like this, and they were peeking in, and the giants that were in the room were drunk and asleep, and the player characters zipped into the room, and from right here, they figured out what to do, and then they started attacking. So there's one other last opportunity for entry, right? Besides the 1A main door area and the open courtyard, which is area 22 that has the 14 dire wolves, is the guard tower. This is something a lot of people forget to talk about. Let's just pull that map up one more time. The guard tower is this thing right here. You see this in this picture? So to be a guard tower, it's up higher, right? Maybe it's 25, 30 feet in the air, and it's going to have this visibility on all four sides where you could shoot a bow or throw a boulder out the window. Someone could very easily, climb up onto the first roof at 20 feet and then come up to here and boost each other up and climb in Assassin's Creed style and jump into the guard tower. If you were to do that, if you want the front doors to both be, locked and the player to be out here and them trying to get in, they can't pick these locks. Um, that might be a way for them to figure out how to get inside because there's no actual, I don't have a VTT map for it, but if you go around over here, you'll see there's a set of stairs, and as they go up to the stairs to the upper level, there's another guard up top who's at the top, and we just use this implied guard here to represent the guard at the top. So if players do climb up onto this upper second story of this area, which is going to be a square watchtower like this, they could easily just work their way down the steps and come all the way back down again. So that wouldn't be a problem at all. So from there, the other thing I like to do is consider that, okay, where would doors be locked as a DM? So these guys, these two guards are supposed to be guarding this front room. Let's just do this way you can see better. These doors here, and I've already gone ahead and locked them. I would actually have all these be locked by all the, and so they have to figure out a way to unlock them. This one here I've got open for I was just talking about it. Um, so I would leave all those doors locked, and I would make it where the players have to figure out how to deal with that. That's an interesting challenge for them. You've got a thief, but these are going to be these really thick, 1 foot thick, 7 foot wide, at least 6 foot high, iron-bound log doors. Now, what are you going to do with that? Let's just get our thief and put her over here. Let's just put her here, and let's just assume for a minute that these doors were both closed and locked. Let's close it, lock it. Okay, so she's trying to get in, she try to open locks, pickpockets, et cetera, et cetera. So she's going to try to open this lock, but this is not a door lock like a regular type of door. This is a heavy series of wet logs that are bound together by iron. That means that it's barred on the inside. So whichever way the doors swing, okay, they're going to be set up in a way that you can't swing the doors in, because if you swing them in, they hit the bar. So they would be barred from the inside. Let's just unlock this door real quick. So if this door were to open, it would swing in like this, right? It wouldn't swing out. Let's put that this way. So the way the doors work in Foundry VTT is that when the door is closed, you can't see through it, and when the door is open, you have a line of sight, but it never tries to articulate which way the door swings. So what I suggest you do is make sure that all doors that are considered locked are barred from the inside, meaning there's a big wooden bar that someone can just lift and move out of the way. These are hill giants, right? There's not going to be the master of keys running around with a big, clunky, 12-inch long, 4-inch diameter key to unlock everything for everyone. So that's another key detail that no one usually ever talks about or even discusses. I think that's really, really important for you to keep in mind for your players. Um, let's go through our list here. What else do we have? So we talked about doors. Um, Another thing would be like, how do big doors like this, how are they hinged? And if those things are made out of vertical logs bound together with steel, they probably have, or iron, they probably just have a really basic iron hinge. So this door would probably, let's see if we can draw on here. I think we can draw a little sketch, can't we? Let's do this. Can we do a freehand sketch like this? Yeah, okay. Let's just say that this is, let's say this is a door, right? If you swing open like this, right? Like that. So the door would swing open and lean up against this wall here. So we're going to get rid of this trash off of here. So that would be something else to think about. The doors aren't going to swing out. They're not going to swing out like this. They're not going to swing out against this wall, right? You're not going to have that going on. You want to have those doors swinging in. Now, why do you want to do that again? Because you want to make sure that they are barred from the inside. If they're not barred from the inside, then they won't work. All right. So once those players figure out how to deal with this first room, you have another element that you can do in Foundry VTT that you don't usually do with, oops, sorry, still drawing tools class. Don't usually do with the a theater of the mind kind of game. And a lot of you guys are theater of the mind, and or you play online with Roll20 or whatever, and you may have a really beautiful map. Let's get everyone together here. Let's just put everyone in the same area. Is who can see what when they're doing this? I think when you have a map like this map is just perfect for someone really being a thief and really moving around and saying, "Hey, listen, now what do all these lines mean?" Right? So we're assuming it's pitch black dark. Now, even though it's pitch black dark, there's starlight, right? So around you in a pitch black dark, you can see, we got a little measuring tool we can use here. You can see pretty decently around you. You're not completely blind. You can see about 10 to 15 feet in front of you. And that's what this radius is supposed to kind of represent, right? So all the measuring tools go from the center of the grid. So even though that says it's 5 feet from the center to the center, as you can tell, that's actually 10 feet. So you're just going to use the edge to determine how far you can see if you're going to do measurements like this. So how far away is he from her? Well, they're about 10 feet apart. About 10 feet apart. Another rule I like to use is make sure that player characters can not occupy the adjacent space, kind of like in Warlords Wargaming. So they can't do this unless they're intentionally standing still to block something, like they're trying to block a door. If they're moving, they can move like motorcyclists do when we're catty corner on the highway. You can do like this if you want to. Anyway, that's a minor detail. So the thing is, if this is the area you can see around you, I call that bright light. And you can adjust that number to be whatever you want it to be. Now, in your situation, you ask yourself, hey, how am I going to adjust this, right? What you would do is you would go over to the actual player characters. In this situation, we got the thief. You click on them, and here's the prototype token. And this is where you would control which picture you're using. In fact, this was a monk in the past. Their vision. So we have a dim radius and a bright radius. So in this situation, the light that's directly around her is considered the bright light. Let's move him out of the way. Move these guys out of the way. And notice how every time I change the view, you can see how the line of sight changes. If his line of sight's like this, that makes it very useful. If you have 4 different players that can see 4 different things, use the line of sight and the lighting as part of the fun experience, since this mission is mostly going to be a stealth mission. So in this situation, let's say the thief comes to here, opens a door, and stands here and takes a peek and can see that around them clearly is the space around them, but they can see very bright light here and dimly lit enough to identify that that is a hill giant, right? And they wouldn't be able to see, if I'm the DM, I can actually see how much they can see. Isn't that interesting? So the hill giants, because this thief is in darkness, right? He can't see her because he can't see that far because it's dark. The reason why she can see these guys is because they're illuminated. This is a brilliant way to use VTT to have fun. Now, and you have the flexibility to change all this lighting, right? So you can say, you know what, I don't like that light there. I actually don't think there'd be a torch there. I think the next torch would be against the wall here, and it would be about this much radius here. And that's what I think is good enough. Now look at the difference. Let's go back to turn the lighting mode off. Let's go back to her. She can't see him at all. So this is a really wonderful way to change the scene before the players get in there, is the lighting. And it's very, very, very good. He can look this way, even though the door's open. You know, even if he was here, he can't see out here because it's all dark. There's a moonless night, right? Well, in his situation, he can't really see out because of moonless night. But you see look at her. She can see these two, but since this guy here is not in being hit by the light that's here, there's no active dim light hitting this guy. He's basically completely concealed. Now, watch this. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. When your players start to control and move their characters, and I said you can say things like, okay, if you want to approach, this guy can't see you. Okay, but if you start approaching, if anyone else sees you, I'm going to let you know right away. So what you would do as a DM is you are controlling this character, right, as the player character is moving. So when the player character starts moving through the environment, you can see in real time whether he can see her. In this situation, bingo, the moment she stepped through the doorway, he'd be able to see her. Why is that? Because of the light that's right here, right? So if we delete that light and go back to this and go back to this giant, he can't see her. He can't see her either. Why not? Because she's in a dimly lit area, but she can see him because he's being hit by light, but she can't see him. Isn't that awesome? Really, really useful. Now, the players have their own view. The player views looks like this, right? This is what they see. The thief's move, your move, control the DM. You get to see what each of these guys see. And while you're controlling your screen, like I'm the DM mode here, I can actually go back and forth and check these guys as players moving and update the players that, hey, they're going to move to here, I'm going to move to here, and I'll actually be able to see the moment she enters this band of light here, um, what's happening. If I don't have an enemy selected, I won't be able to get that kind of information. What I'll just get is a view like this when the character's moving around and doing the lights. So this is a really neat way. At this point, he can see her barely because see this line here? She's barely inside the lighting. That's why if you go look at the details, minor details like this change the gameplay. Because when you are given this map, right, in the very most rudimentary of ways, let's just set this to be page width. When you get this module 13 pages, those kind of details are not there. As a DM, you really, I used to be an architect, and I was a level designer in the game industry for 27 years. You really got to take this space and make it come alive. You got to think not just which doors are locked and how many guys are in the room. There's not enough information there for you to truly make a fun, dramatic event for your players to play through. Your players will appreciate it when they see that lighting is making a big difference. They may slow down their gameplay a little bit. They may do things like go invisible all the time, but they might want to be very careful about when they do when they want to break invisibility. So this first area, is this is the wrong room. Sorry, I'm gonna go back here to area one. This very first area is this entry and cloakroom. Two sleeping hill giants are drinking. Right now, one thing I think is really, really neat about this detail is it's just a basic room with two hill giants in it. The odds are that these characters will easily dispatch these guys. And as a DM, the next thing you need to think about, in addition to sound, in addition to light, is sound. So in this area here, we have this massive party going on. Huge bonfire, pigs being cooked. You've got visiting cloud giants, visiting hill giants. Excuse me, stone giants. You've got orcs coming and going from the kitchen, which is this area over here. This is the kitchen. Food's coming and going. All the activity is in here. There's a few females in this area, a bunch of bunch of children, young giant younglings in here dorking around. But this whole exterior area here is all completely. There's no one there. You can sneak your way in quite easily. And the activity up in this area is not very exciting too. But all this is roaring, drinking, fighting, axe tossing, banging on tables. People are drunk. They're celebrating something. Maybe they're celebrating the capture of the Lord's, cousin or uncle or child or daughter. Who knows? But in this room is a sub chief, and she's supposedly sleeping on the bed. Guess where she's adjacent? If you were in here, what could you hear? Right? Even though these walls are thick, if there's a lot of clanging and fighting and a fireball blowing up and all that, this character will be alerted. Now, if it's raining and thundering and lightning, that's a really interesting point. If the players decide to sneak into the room and the magic user doesn't want to cast a fireball, instead they want to maybe engage in a quiet fight by casting silence 15-foot radius, that doesn't mean that if the spells go off inside the silence 15-foot radius, it may not affect the sub chief. So this is the thing I want to say without going into too much detail, is not only do you need to pay attention to who's in the room, what doors are locked, what the light sources are, think about who could hear what. You've got two hill giants sleeping in this adjacent room. This guy here can almost hear if you're banging on the door. If someone's trying to play the game and you decide to make this door locked, right? And you would you want to roll a d6 and try to break the door down, guess who's going to probably hear that? This might stir this guy. So as a DM, like we do in the video game industry, you got to be the AI. You got to think to yourself, you know what? If those guys are going to be making noise out there, this dude's going to wake up his other buddy. And while they're banging on the door, I'm going to have these guys come down the hall and check into it. Or you say to yourself, this one guy, he's just drunk and tired. He doesn't care. But the other guy by himself is going to go check this out. So I'm going to have him move down the hallway here and come all the way down to this door here. And maybe by the time that the players get this door open, this guy comes barreling in and they're like, oh, look, we're in the room. Let's all get ready to attack this one hill giant. And this other dude here opens up the damn door. And now you've got a nasty situation going on. We're like, oh, crap. So, you know, there is so much interesting, vibrant, detailed, tactical stuff that can happen that's super dramatic. beyond just the first element of you walk in the room, you see these two guys, roll for initiative, right? Think beyond that. My biggest advice to you is have this first fight, the situation that happens. Don't cheat. Like, don't make these guys wake up and start attacking the players if they weren't beating down the door, right? Like, don't cheat unless you're just a really sneaky kind of guy. And if you're someone that really thinks that your party are a little bit on the clunky, goofy side and aren't playing at an expert level, maybe you don't want to wake up the sub chief's wife, right? And if she does wake up, what's she going to do, right? Big bossy boots, sub chief wife. She's probably going to come in this room and tell these dummies to stop making noise, thinking that they're in here being drunk, and then she might be surprised. So you'll need to use the surprise uh, dice roll to see who's surprised, who's not surprised. So these kinds of details are super important, right? Let's talk about some other points. Assume everyone got into the room and maybe they've dispatched these guys. These guys, let's say they've been destroyed. A lot of times they have the players are going to have this issue where they either take this door, or this door. There's another key point to remember about this. Some people have played this module before. They played it a long, long time ago, and they kind of remember some of they did. They pretty much remember that the first room has two dudes sleeping, and the other one has a big party going on. So go around the perimeter and wipe everything out, and then figure out how to bomb everything in here. That's, I tell you what, ask someone who's played it before. So yeah, you played Steading Hill Giant Chief. Do you remember which way did you guys go in? If you hear them say they burned the place to the ground, you know the DM wasn't as good as you are. But they said, yeah, we went in like kind of the front door, and then we worked our way into the main room and killed everyone. Right? You know, that's an interesting approach. But remember, we're using these pre-generated characters, and they have a lot of invisibility stuff. In fact, they have some very powerful stuff that they could use between the magic user casting different types of spells. For example, right? Let's go. Let me jump ahead to my tactics page. Here's the kinds of things that the players will have at their disposal to facilitate sneaking around with complete immunity, right? You're going to probably laugh as you hear this, right? The magic user can cast up to 5th level spells. So when the players pick the spells, do they pick invisibility, right? Do they pick mass invisibility, mass invisibility 10-foot radius? I don't think a level 12 magic user can pick up mass invisibility. I think that's 6th level. But if they pick invisibility on page 70, they can be invisible forever until they attack. So the magic user can essentially walk through the entire dungeon as long as they don't get too close, don't make too much noise, and don't do much breathing, right? And don't bump into anything. If they're very, very careful, especially if they tell you that they're careful, they can walk through the entire place and map it out, and they wouldn't be able to see. They know where everything is now. The problem with invisibility 10-foot radius is that when people are inside the radius, they can't see each other. This is one thing about AD&D a lot of people forget. It's not like it is in Neverwinter where mass invisibility and camouflage is everyone's stealthing along next to each other. When you could use a 10-foot radius invisibility or mass invisibility, the people in the middle can't see each other. It's really, really tactically challenging. You can read about invisibility 10-foot radius. I think it's page 74 on the player's handbook. You can read that on your own. So what I'm trying to say here is that if you have the mage, or the wizard, however I always call them mage, and then you have the thief. The thief has dust of disappearance. The amount of times you can become completely invisible and the duration for the dust of disappearance is really, really, really long. I think she has 12 pinches of it. Let's just double check her character sheet. Yeah, here we go. She has 12 pinches of dust of disappearance. Each one of those pinches, if you sprinkle it over yourself completely, right, it gives you 2 to 20 turns. Remember, a turn in AD&D is originally 10 minutes. Now, if you modify a melee round to be 6 seconds, which is not a base rule as written, you probably want to modify the length of a turn, right? Or you can just leave it, right? 2 to 20 turns. So that would be 20 minutes to 20 times 10, 200 minutes. And it works the same way, I believe, as, oh, where is that? I'm trying to remember where it is. It's in the Dungeon Master's Guide somewhere. Let's just pull it up real quick. I think that you can actually attack invisible while using Dust of Disappearance and not be revealed. It's really, 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 really crazy. Let's see. It would be under miscellaneous magic items, I believe. And let's make this a little bit, let's be able to pan sideways. Let's just take me a minute. Miscellaneous CB. I remember years ago, this is a detail I wanted to share with you guys that most people are like, what? You can do that? That's crazy. Deck of Many Things. Drums of Panic. That is down here at the bottom, isn't it? E. Here it is, dust of appearance and dust of disappearance. I'm going to zoom in a little bit because I know you're watching this on YouTube. You probably can't see as well. All right, here you go. Here we go. Let me put this back on arrow mode. This right here, right? Okay. Dust exactly resembles that of appearance, and it's typically found stored, blah, 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 blah. All things touched by it reflect, bend light, et cetera, right? If carefully sprinkled, you can make an object invisible, just one object, a little bit of it, right? Attack while thus invisible is possible, always by surprise if the opponent is unable to note invisible things, and always at armor class 4 better than while invisibility lasts. Note that unlike the invisibility spell, attack while using dust appearance will not obviate the invisibility. Okay, obviate, that's a great word to add to your dictionary. That means you can run around like Frodo with the ring on and start jacking people in the back, and they can't see you. They're going to have to just attack where they think you're standing, wherever noises you are, where it felt like it came from that way, but like fighting something with your eyes closed, like Luke Skywalker, right? Um, so that is really, really, really powerful. Okay, 12 pinches of this stuff. So you put this stuff on yourself or on someone else, and they got a timer. So if a players in your party start doing the dust of disappearance mode of sneaking around and jacking everyone and killing them, be sure you're brushed up on your what to do to sleeping targets or targets unaware. The armor class boost is fantastic. They're not unhittable. They still can be hit. You might want to add additional penalties. The way it's written, there already is a penalty for trying to hit something that's attacking you with that dust of disappearance on itself, but that is very, very, very powerful. Another thing is the cleric and the fighter. The cleric and the fighter, let's just click on it right here. They both have potions of invisibility. The fighter has 4 of them right down here at the bottom, and I believe the cleric has 1, but the fighter could always give some. Yeah, he has a potion, 2 potions of invisibility. Every single character from the pre-generated list, this group right here, all have access to invisibility. And I think it's fun for your players to chance their arms at trying to play through the adventure by using invisibility to sneak around. It should be rewarding for them to sneak around and maybe come in this room here while the younglings are and decide to leave them there or maybe lock them in or something like that, you know? So let that become part of the fun of playing this adventure. You have things like, you know, this room over here that has the pet cave bear, which you probably remember very vividly if you've ever done this dungeon before. If someone comes into this room and they haven't, you know, you're using invisibility. Let's just say that let's say that the thief is using dust of disappearance and comes down the hallway, sees this door. The door's not locked. They open the first door. They can come peeking in. Whoops, sorry about that. They come peeking in. Let's zoom in closer. And by this time, the bear's already smelled you, right? So the bear can tell that you're not part of the family. The bear might you might, as a DM, you might be, listen, I'm gonna have this bear right here behind the door. And the moment the thief comes and peeks around the door and gets to here, boom, he's going to attack her in the hallway. So the bear is going to use, sense of smell, and start swiping at you. So that could be very interesting. You might have a situation where the fight between the bear and your thief happens like right here in the hallway. And who else can possibly hear that? Will the youngsters hear it across the hall? It's all the way up here and around the corner. They may or may not hear it if they're yapping and chatting and drinking. This is the hill giant matron and a bunch of females are in this room. So, if they start doing the dust of disappearance thing, think about where characters are and do they hear or see anything and how do they move through the dungeon. Unlike a fear of the mind session where you're not really understanding that as just down the hallway is the matron, you know that she's asleep. You think, okay, she needs to be asleep. If the players are going down the hallway and they're not making noise, I'm not even going to roll to see whether they are waking anyone up or not, right? You might have a situation where the characters are all going to move down the hallway here. Let's just put them down here, and maybe even a situation where the characters, let's open this door so you can see through. The characters will work their way all the way down here and maybe even come to this room and have entered this room and have decided that, hey, we've got some guys sleeping in here. We're setting up an ambush. We want the cleric and the magic user in the hallway, and we want to put our the fighter in the first person in the room. He's going to be ready to charge forward. And these guys would see you, right? They would see you. They would see these two. But if they're asleep, they're not going to see anything. So you might have a situation where that kind of ambush is happening. You've seen it before. Your players are talking about where I'm going to be. I'm going to be standing down the hallway. All this kind of fun stuff. At a moment, banging around starts going on. Is she going to come investigate? I mean, that's what makes the stealth-oriented James Bondy kind of mission so fun. Is as a DM, if you have her come down the hallway and if she sees this guy, right, by himself, she'd probably be very confident and start roaring and screaming and yelling out something to raise the alarm. Does that mean that all the youngsters would recognize her voice and come pouring out of the room and bang right into her? Do these matrons come pouring out? They could find themselves almost surrounded. Does she know about the secret door that's right here? There's a secret door here, right? There's a secret door that um, people that aren't guests can use to peek in on the main room. The sub chief probably knows about the sub chief's wife would know about the secret door. She might run down the hallway and open up an alarm for this entire group. We've got attackers. You can just hear it. It'd probably be a funny accent, which I won't do. So anyway, I want to kind of slow things down and stop this recording there. But this is these are the kinds of details that I think are really, really important. And what I'd like to do with the next series of follow-up videos is to talk about um, how to handle these kind of rooms. Like I've kind of already covered what could happen in this area here. I'd like to talk about what happens if the players just come into the kids' room right off the bat and don't even wake up the sub chief. What happens if they just try to go in there and assassinate the sub chief? Every room has a really interesting tactical perspective. What happens if the players start working their back way and they come bumbling into the kitchen? Like, do they come bumbling into the kitchen right here where these doors are open, right? These doors are supposed to be open, right? They can see into each other. This door's closed, closed, open, open, closed, closed. And you can't see into here, right? So with both these doors are open because the food's going back and forth. What happens when the players come bebopping along and appear right here? So that's what I want to do with the video series because I think it's a really fun way for you to start thinking about the level design and the gameplay to make it exciting for your players with just a bunch of basic laid out dungeon. It's not that complicated of a dungeon. I mean, even this first level, and we'll do the lower level as well eventually. And I want you to see how you could use Foundry VTT as a DM and also people connecting over the internet in their browser to really think about lighting, sound, and line of sight. Okay, so we're going to stop there. It's the first episode. A lot going on really fast, but I will put time stop markers in here so you can see that okay, this is this here, this is this here. He's going to talk about this here, so you can kind of break it down into chapters. But thanks for coming back and checking out our new video series. I'll try to release these all in one big swell batch. That way you get a whole bunch of things to look at. They're usually going to be sequential, so you're going to want to watch them in order. But other than that, have a great day, enjoy your summer, and we'll talk to you again real soon. Take care now.